And in this video, I am going to be introducing you to the stages of ascension and how I have perceived and experienced ascension on my journey. Pre-awareness of ascension, pre-awakening. Okay, so this is the period of time when from birth through up until the point where you really become aware of what's happening with ascension. So this is almost like the preface to ascension. When I was younger, I had a lot of interesting experiences. I've always been interested in the supernatural. I've been interested in ETs and aliens. I've talked about this in other videos. Ghosts and spirits. I know when I was younger, I experimented with the Ouija board and had some amazing experiences with that. Always had a fascination with it. And I've always known that there was more to life than just the life that we see and the life that we're living. There was something greater out there. And always read books on this. A great book is by Ruth Montgomery, The Here and Hereafter, or A World Beyond. I read those books. My aunt gave them to me when I was a teenager, and they really resonated with me. Explained what happens when we die, and it was from an automated writing perspective on a psychic who had passed, came through another psychic and wrote this book. Really fascinating. So I'm very interested. So a lot of us grow up with this sense that there's something more. We have a greater purpose. We're here for something. We really don't know what it is, and it's just there. Now, life tends to take over, whatever it may be. We, go through school. We go to college. If we go to college, we get a job. We start a business, whatever it may be. But this knowing of something greater, like there's a greater purpose, kind of gets tucked in the back there, and it's running. It's there. It's just a knowing. But we kind of move along life the way society guides us, which is to get an education, get a job, get a career. Become a homeowner, get a mortgage, whatever it may be, that kind of thing. We move along that line, but yet there's this knowing within us that's anchored that there is something greater here, and we are here to do something greater. Now, this is our soul's purpose, okay? And we have the seed in us, and this is a frequency in us that almost lies dormant, okay? It's a seed really that hasn't been watered. So in this stage or pre-stage of ascension, as we continue to move along life's path, in the beginning when we're younger, we may feel like, oh, I know there's something greater, but I've got time. We'll get to that down the road. I know something's going to unfold and open up for me, but I'm still really wrapped up in getting my life going and building things, assets, building a career. You're in the programming of life. And as we move along life, I've experienced this seed start to grow, okay? And now I've got this greater light, more access to this higher frequency light within me that is saying, hey, come over here. We're going to start moving in the direction of what you're supposed to really be doing here on the planet. Now, that starts to grow. And what happens is we have some resistance with what we're doing in life. Maybe with our job or relationships or whatever it may be, we start to not really resonate with that anymore. And this is a process that could take years, decades, whatever, but it grows. It grows subtly, okay? And the reason this is growing is because we have a polarity now, a greater polarity between this anchoring of this 5D and higher self soul energy in our body that's activated. It's growing. It's attracting more of our soul's energy, our soul's purpose, and that creates more resistance, even greater resistance, as we continue to move down our programmed life path, our careers, our jobs, whatever it may be. So the more this light grows, the more we feel resistance in the opposite direction with the life path that we set ourselves on when we were younger. And this is that stage of ascension that leads up to the next stage, which I'm going to talk about in the next video, which is, a spontaneous spiritual awakening. So we increase, keep going down this path that we are having this greater feeling that just isn't resonating anymore. And yet we're not certain about what to do about it. We don't know why it doesn't feel right anymore. So we're still living in ego at this stage, okay? We're not aware of our soul. We're just aware of this feeling that what we're doing in life doesn't feel right. So from the ego's perspective, what do most people do at this stage? They will look to change something in their external. They're feeling for something different, and they feel like, well, it must be the situation that's not right. So I'm going to change my external situation and move into another situation, and that's going to feel better. So we switch. Maybe it's a relationship. We jump ship. If you're married, you get a divorce, you break, whatever it may be. You move in a different direction. It could be a career change, a job change. Hey, something just ain't feeling right at this job. I'm going to get another job. Okay? And the ego thinks when we change the external, we change our situation, we change how we feel, and we're going to feel better. Yet, from our soul's perspective, all we're doing is changing the situation, the 3D situation, okay? We're not moving into purpose. So what a lot of us will find is that we'll land in a new job or a new relationship, and things are going to be great in the beginning because we're distracted on the newness of it, because we made a change. And making a change feels good. And that's our soul's way of telling us, you're moving, you're not stuck. Kind of like stuck energy, right? Energy is moving, you're beginning to make a change, okay? So you move down this different path in life, new career, new relationship, new job, and then after a while, you start to ground more of your soul's energy, and you're still not really aware of it, but when you made that change here on Earth to a new job or career or whatever it may be, you actually moved out of a comfort zone and created more space. So you were able to ground more of your soul, more of your knowing, more of your purpose. Yet, you still may not be awakened to what it is. So as we move in this new direction, eventually, we grow because we've changed, but that starts to not resonate anymore. And the reason that starts to not resonate anymore is because the same patterns are starting to rear their head. The same patterns that are not in alignment with purpose. These pre-programmed patterns. Okay? Again, the new light that's come in and grounded is showing us what you're doing is not in alignment with frequency. Okay? So we may have cleared some patterns and healed from patterns of moving out of comfort zone a little bit by changing our job, changing our relationship. But we've moved into another earthly situation driven by ego. Okay? Ego controlled. I need to be in a relationship. I need to have another job that's going to make X number of dollars, that kind of thing. So we start to clear the pattern of being comfortable. We take risks. We move into a new situation. We heal a little bit. We create space. More of our light comes in, and we start feeling more resistance now starts to creep up. So we repeat the process. Maybe we'll go into another career, another relate, whatever it may be, right? And that process goes over and over. But the whole time this is happening, we are expanding our consciousness in our body and grounding more of our soul's light. And again, as I said before, this could take, a year, months, a year, decades, whatever it may be. It is okay. No time is wasted. Nothing you've done in the past is wasted. Every journey you have taken, you have learned from that journey. Okay? You have pulled information in that will be valuable later, that your mind will be able to use as a tool when you awaken and allow your mind to become that tool instead of running your life. So that is what I describe as the pre-awakening process of ascension. Okay? Now in the next video, I'm going to talk about that spontaneous awakening. Now, not everybody experiences a powerful aha moment like I did. That's okay. Some of you may gradually move into that space of where just the light comes on and you're like, you know exactly what you have to do. You just start to move into it. So either way, it's okay. That's the next video. It's going to be really cool. I'm going to talk about what happened with me, and we'll move on from there into the other stages after that. So before I get into the actual awakening, I just want to say that not everyone will experience a large, powerful, spontaneous awakening. This is something that is decided on the soul level, and many people kind of step into it gradually throughout their life's journey and just kind of subtly start to get in touch with their higher self and their soul energy. So, but others will experience a life-changing, spontaneous, spiritual awakening event. And that's what happened with me. So, this spiritual awakening, this is something that comes about after many years of soul searching, right? We're focused externally, we're changing situations, maybe, we're changing jobs, we're changing relationships, we're maybe moving to different parts of the world, different states if you're here in the US, just trying to find something that really feels like home to us, something that really resonates, but we really don't know why we don't feel fulfilled, okay? And that's our soul's way of moving us further into resistance, because when we realize we no longer can find the answers externally, something has to change. And that is usually when people experience a spontaneous spiritual awakening. So could be, after tremendous loss, grief, disappointment, deaths of loved ones, maybe getting let go from a career or a job that you've been so identified with, something of that nature. So when we start to question our identity and we can no longer find the answers externally, a lot of times we experience a spontaneous spiritual awakening. Now, that happened to me. It was a life-changing pivot. That's the best way to describe it. I was never into or followed, even really knew about the Ascension process, or really even talked about or knew about a spiritual awakening. Never really came across it. Now, I had always been interested in the paranormal, ETs, ghosts, spirits communicating, things like that. And I had experiences throughout my life that kind of kept maybe one foot in that reality. So I always knew there was something within me that knew. But when I had my spiritual awakening, something completely unexpected happened. And that's usually the case. That's how we perceive it. Something that just completely opens you up and just really rocks your vision or what you think this world and life is about. And that's the whole point. Okay? So it's a spontaneous, powerful drop in and activation of your higher self, your soul's energy, cosmic energy. And when that happened with me, I was instantly thrust out of my body. I was best way to describe it is one with the universe. I was in the cosmos. Almost felt like I was traveling through the cosmos on an energetic level, and I was receiving all sorts of amazing information. Okay, information about gravity, information about life on other planets, galaxies, the universe, multiverse, that kind of thing. All of a sudden came flooding into me. And after I had this experience, when I re-entered my body, my life was changed. There was a pivot point from then on. So that led me to start doing some research and learning about what was happening, and that realizing other people had experienced similar type of thing. So that really is the main point of having a spontaneous awakening. It results out of going through life and then just realizing that what you seek, okay, after many maybe life changes, changing the external, doing that, going through that energy, living in that resistance, and realizing that there's just something that is unfulfilling. No matter what you do, we get pointed by our soul to look in a place we really haven't looked before, and that is inside. Okay, so That's what happens. And as you start going down this road, once you've awakened, you start to get focused on the inside, because we know from an energetic perspective that everything we see external is just a reflection of the energy that we are carrying with us. And as things appear to be dense, unfulfilling, unhappy, fearful, filled with anxiety, that kind of thing, we are pointed inside so that we could start to seek out these blockages of energy and heal them and clear them. Okay, and a lot of times people are so identified with the external that it takes a spontaneous event, like an amazing magical awakening, to snap them out of it. Okay, very common. Again, not everybody goes through this. Some have chosen to come in to gradually align with their higher self, with their soul's energy and that knowing, and they it's like stepping into a nice warm bath or a warm pool, right? You just kind of gracefully get into it. Others, like me, I knew that there was more to life than just what I was experiencing and seeing, but I chose to have the kind of dive off the diving board into the cold pool kind of experience to just shock you awake. Now, when that happened, everything in my life became about getting back to that feeling. Okay, and it's an interesting phenomenon, because we have this awakening, we experiencing these super high frequency energy, and we're aligned with it for a period of time, and we take it in, and what we're doing is we're really feeling these activated frequencies within us, this DNA, and it just comes flooding through us. Okay, it comes rushing through us, and we get to experience, the best way to describe it is magic. Okay, so we have access to magic. Now, living in the magic from that point forward doesn't get the job done, because we now focus again externally on what we've experienced. We go to research what the heck happened. Maybe we start seeing energy, we start seeing auras. Maybe we start having communication with our star family, ETs, our guides, that kind of thing. And we tend to start focusing outward. Okay, so that's not the point of the awakening. The awakening is to awaken you to your higher self, to your soul's energy, and then the real work begins. But we're allowed to hang out there for a while. So I've realized that by hanging out there and having these experiences with my guides coming down really to interact with me, and me being able to start to see auras and things like that, and see energy, orbs floating around, all that kind of stuff, seeing craft in the sky, was a way for me to really anchor what was coming in, to really make it real. Okay, so it hangs out there for a little bit of time. The best way to describe this is like if you have like a crystal, or like a clear quartz crystal, and I know you guys have seen this, even with the rain and a rainbow, when the light, which we are light, and we've carried light with us, even before our awakening, we've had light within us, but when we awaken, good analogy is it refracts out, like a crystal refracts, or a rainbow. We have white light now becoming different frequencies, different colors, and the awakening does that. What it does is it allows you to see with the activation of your third eye, which is something that often happens during a spontaneous awakening. We get to see different frequencies of light. Okay, like a prism, as a crystal refracts the light out into the colors, different frequencies, we're able to see. So we start to be able to focus in on these frequencies. And when my guides came in after my awakening, the ET guides, my spirit guide I actually had communication with before my spontaneous awakening, but after my awakening, the guides came in, the ET guides, and they came in as frequencies, and they came in more dense, and I was able to perceive them because I was able to, with my third eye, see these different frequencies of light. And that's because of that prism effect. As this energy rushes through the body, it's reflected out. Okay, so we are becoming crystalline in nature. So that's what's happening with this light. Now, that keeps us focused externally for a period of time. But what happens after that is that we are really forced to go inside, okay? Because we'll start to experience maybe some of these awesome magical experiences may start to lessen a little bit here and there because we are guided to go inside, okay? So we've flattered the ego, so to speak. The ego was involved with seeing all these experiences because of our patterns, how cool these experiences are. But then it's time to heal and integrate things and bring the ego into the equation and pull those various frequencies of light, those various colors, the experiences we were having after our awakening, to pull them back inside and integrate them back into pure white high frequency light. Integration, okay? So that's really what's happening with a spiritual awakening. That's how I've experienced it. That's my perspective of it. The other piece of it too is after this type of thing, we're very ego identified, and that partially contributes to being able to have these external experiences because we perceive it through the filter of the ego and our pre-programming. And a lot of us, I know I did, I kind of had the feeling that I needed to kind of stay quiet about it in the beginning, and I had to kind of hold it to myself because with society, people are going to think, you're a little off, maybe you're a little bit crazy, what's going on, that kind of stuff. So another effect of that is that kind of a feeling, and that's completely okay because that's just our ego. Right now, this has been exposed. We're aware of our greater reality, our soul, our higher self, and now we're becoming aware of our ego's programs, which is saying, wow, these experiences are amazing, but we better not tell anybody because society thinks we're going to be crazy, or that we're crazy, right? So that's where we start to create that space. And when we start to work on ourselves and start to identify these thoughts and patterns within our mind after a spiritual awakening, we start to integrate and heal internally. And that is the point of the awakening. It sets us up, pivots you from whatever path you were on, pivots you to a new path, new timeline, so to speak, to start the healing journey. And in the next video, we're going to talk about that deep dive plunge into the darkness, which so often happens after a spontaneous spiritual awakening, and why it happens, what the purpose of it is, and how we can best navigate through that. So the third stage of the Ascension process, the dark night of the soul. So the fun stage, right? This is the third stage in the Ascension process as I see it, and this is where the amazingness of the spiritual awakening kind of goes away, or at least it feels like it goes away. And we're plunged into a type of a spiritual depression, aka dark night of the soul. Now, I know many of you have experienced this. In fact, some of you probably have experienced this multiple times. Ascension is really like an upwards kind of corkscrew where we go up, we come down, and then we go up even higher, and then we come back down, but maybe not down as far as we were before, and go up again. So we're kind of in this circular pattern rising. And during these descension cycles, these periods where we're coming down and we're feeling disconnected and those kind of things, maybe a little bit depressed, maybe we've lost that feeling of amazement and love, we're heading into what's called dark night of the soul. And there's a very simple explanation as to why this happens, and that's because we are bodies of density, and in order to continue to ascend, we're turned on to our light. We know that we're soul energy here living in a human form. We need to release this density. We need to help the process. Earth is ascending, and in order to get our physical bodies moving along that path, we need to release the density as well and raise the vibration of our physical body. That allows our physical vehicle, to hold and maintain more light, okay, more consciousness. And again, moving these densities, these raw emotions, fear, anxiety, depression, that kind of thing, we need to transmute this. And how do we do that? We need to actually live in it and feel it. Okay, and I'm not saying identify and become it, but we need to allow it to be. We need to allow these emotions to be. We need to feel them. And after an awakening, hey, there's a new sheriff in town. Okay, so the soul drops in, we become aware, and the ego used to run the show. The ego was the sheriff. Okay, the ego was the one calling the shots, directing our path. Okay, using its programming and its emotions and competitiveness, that kind of thing. The ego was calling the shots. The ego was running the town. And after the awakening, a new sheriff came into town, and that's our soul. Now the ego's running for its life. And during this period of the ego running for its life, the ego's throwing everything out there to try to take control back, to try to take the situation back over, okay? And it's going to use all the deep stuff, all the trauma, because remember, the ego is really trying to protect us. It's not bad. It's an aspect. It's a fragment of us, okay? It's the protective personality. But over time and through cultural conditioning, we've allowed the ego to call the shots. Well, with the soul now on board, the ego is instantly relegated to second chair. Okay, so from what it had, with the control it had, it's lost it. And it's going to start to highlight within us every reason that we need to pay attention to it. Okay, it's going to give us reason after reason after reason. Well, it's going to make you feel depressed. It's going to make you feel anxious. It's going to highlight situations that it had been able to easily control in the past. Like maybe you have a project at work or something that needs to get done. It's going to make you try to focus on things. It's going to make you try to forget about what's been happening with your soul's energy, right? This energy, high frequency, trying to move through you. And as this moves through you, it's starting to clear. Now, we perceive the ego as this control freak, but what's happening is as our soul's energy moves through us, we are releasing dense programming. We are releasing these traumas that have been stored within our body, and they're coming up, and the ego, what we perceive as the ego, is identifying with them, and it's charging these emotions. So from the ego's perspective, the ego says, oh, we feel really bad, we need to take this action, because maybe we feel anxiety. Anxiety's coming up to be healed and released. So the ego charges it, grabs onto it and says, wow, we've had this in the past, and this is how we've dealt with it. We have to do this. And the more we focus our awareness on those emotions, the more we tend to identify with them, and we will want to be pulled off into that direction, which is where the ego is leading us. Okay, but from the soul's perspective, what's happening is we're releasing these emotions. Okay, and this happens because they've been dislodged. Our DNA has been activated by the higher frequency light that we are now aware of, and as we're grounding more of this consciousness, these densities come up into our mental field. Okay, so what we want to do in that point is really create the space to allow these emotions to be. Now, a lot of people will go out and distract themselves, get involved with different projects or different scenarios in a 3D level to bury this back down. But we know better now. We've gone through a spiritual awakening. We know the truth, right? But on the same hand, we don't like these feelings. So it tends to pull us into a very depressed kind of state, because as all this stuff comes rocketing up to our awareness, we can lose touch of the glory, the love, the amazement of the awakening and the high frequency energy that we've grounded. So it's a very disconcerting feeling to go from an awakening, very high frequency, to the polarity, the opposite of a dark night of the soul. Okay, and isn't that really the point? We're here to experience polarity, right? So now that we know the high, we kind of balance that out by experiencing the low. And as these highs are higher and these lows are lower, it's going to feel really crappy. it's going to feel really bad, okay, because we're so far away when we're in this dark night of the soul from our soul's frequency, our soul's energy, this high frequency light. But that's the point. And I want to make it clear that we are to feel these polarities. That's why we're here, because what we want to do is transmute these low frequencies. And as we clear them and as we integrate them, they will start to move up into the frequency up towards our soul's energy, our higher self. Okay, and that's what we want to do. That's called integration. We want to integrate these, like I talked about in the last video, the prism of light. When our higher self, our light comes in during an awakening, and it almost refracts out into a prism, and we can see all the individual frequencies. When we're in the dark night of the soul, we're seeing all these frequencies, right? We're feeling all these emotions. We're aware now of what they are because we're aware of our soul, our consciousness, we have awareness. So we see these as frequencies, and what we want to do is pull them back in together as that light. We want to pull them back in and integrate them. So that's the purpose of the dark night of the soul. And as we go up, we go through a round of this, and as we ascend up, we're now able to integrate, because we've cleared space within us, higher frequency light. And what happens with higher frequency light? It's going to highlight, again, more density within us. That's what the light does. It highlights the density. It's that polarity I talked about a few minutes ago. So when these emotions come back up, and it could be the same types of emotions, it could be the same types of situations, we work with them. We create the space. We feel them. We let them go. And that process pulls them in and integrates them up, transmutes them. And then we could go with a higher round again, because now we have more space for new. So the awakening itself is the amazing fun part of the journey, but it's just the beginning. The dark night of the soul is the actual work where we create the space, we transmute the densities, we work with our physical body to help it release and ascend, because it's all about bringing more light, more consciousness into our physical body, activating DNA. In order to do that, we have to be able to hold that light. So we need to be able to clear this density and ground, stay anchored in our body. Okay, and that's what the dark night of the soul is really designed to do for us. It's to get us into these emotions, to feel them, to really help us to work and ground and create the space and release these. Okay, that's why you've often heard that Gaia will help you in these situations to heal. She will take this density and she will pull it from you and allow you to ground it into her, and she will release it. So we want to use all of these aspects at our disposal, our breath work, meditating, whatever means we need to do to create this space. Call on Gaia, call on our guides, allow them to help us, to assist us move this energy through our body so that we can ground and heal. And as we ground and transmute this energy, we're able to bring in more higher vibrational light, and the process starts again. Now, there's an element to this process that as you go through this a few times, you're going to really learn to start to trust it. Okay, I know it could be very scary the first time you dive into the dark night of the soul, because you really haven't been through it before. You don't know what to expect. You don't know if you're ever going to come out of it. Maybe you think you've lost everything that you've experienced during your awakening. But trust is what comes after you've moved through it. And the more space you create, and the more you're able to ground and trust the process and do the work, feel the emotions that are coming up, you're gonna know that everything that you've had that you feel like you've lost is gonna come back, and that it's just all part of that circular repeating process, that kind of corkscrew going on that's bringing your body up in frequency. So trust is a huge key to this. So I hope this video helps you guys, those of you who've gone through the dark night of the soul, who are presently going through the dark night of the soul. Gives you a little bit of of understanding as to why it's occurring and what's going on with it, I want to discuss the next stage of ascension that occurs after the dark night of the soul. This gets really exciting. I like to call it the rebirth. So wow, we've come out of the dark night of the soul, right? Seemed like it would never end. It was like a walk through hell. Maybe it lasted a few weeks, maybe it lasted a few months or longer. But we seem to have found a crack of light. And that's an amazing experience, because I know sometimes during the dark night of the soul, or many times, we feel like it's never going to end and that we've lost everything. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's just the opposite. And this stage of ascension, the rebirth stage, is when we start to come out of that dark night of the soul period and start to become in tune with something greater than we've even felt in the spiritual awakening stage. So this is something that is grounded. There's a connectedness to it. There's a oneness to it, not as separate. It's just completely new. And the main feeling, the main lesson in this stage that we awaken to is one of trust. Okay, so as I talked about in the spiritual awakening stage, we have a lot of incredible magical experiences. A lot of these experiences are external. That phase, we awaken to higher dimensional energy, higher dimensional frequencies. We realize that there's more out there than just us. Maybe, we discover that life doesn't end when we die. And maybe, those of us that have connected with ETs during that stage realize that there's life on other planets and higher dimensional frequencies and all that kind of great stuff. But that stage has still an element of separateness to it, okay? And that comes through initially to really get the ego on board. The ego starts to recognize these things so we could start to break down some of these limiting beliefs, maybe, religious beliefs, educational beliefs, that kind of stuff. So the ego starts to awaken to that as well and say, kind of what I thought I knew isn't really true. Then we take a dive into the dark night of the soul, and that walk through hell is eye-opening for sure, because how could we experience what we experience in the awakening phase and then basically lose it and start to go through all this pain, right? It's almost paradoxical. We don't understand how something, life so amazing with all this energy and all this newness can just go away and we dive into pain. Well, that happens so that we could start to heal. And, those of you that have gone through Dark Night of the Soul, I'm sure have read everything online that you could find about why have I lost everything? Is this ever going to come back? Why do I feel so depressed? Well, the purpose of that is to create such a polarity that we can start to heal. We don't have any choice, okay, but to go into these emotions, finally start to feel them and process them and integrate them. And that happens after the awakening phase because we're exposed to something so huge that anchors within us that we're actually able to muster the courage and the fortitude to go through Dark Night of the Soul and actually start the healing work. Okay, because without that spiritual awakening, and we hit Dark Night of the Soul, you're really kind of in a depression, right? Without that knowing of who you truly are, and you experience Dark Night of the Soul, it really could feel like a deep, deep, dark depression. So bad that many people never come out or recover from that. So the anchoring that we have in that spiritual awakening phase helps us to go through and roll through that healing process and come out on the other end of it and start to experience light again. Well, with this rebirth, that is exactly what that is. It is a crack of light. We start to realize that we are moving back into alignment with our higher self. Now, why does this happen? Is it just by chance? Well, we spend Dark Night of the Soul clearing and healing and creating space. And this kind of happens over and over and over again. And while we're doing that, we're so focused on these emotions because they're so dense, they're so heavy, that we're really not focused on what's happening behind the scene. And that is we are grounding so much of our higher vibrational energy. So much of our soul, our higher self, our light is coming in, and as we're clearing while we're focused on these emotions, we are pulling down and filling this new space that we're created through the healing process. And this is happening throughout Dark Night of the Soul. Well, one day this is going to finally start to lift. Okay, you're gonna start to feel a little bit lighter gradually, and you may not be aware of it, but one day all of a sudden you're going to resonate to that light that is now present in your body, that anchored consciousness. And with that, you're going to start to move back into alignment. You're going to realize what's been happening, that you've truly been growing into something new. And it's like a cocoon, right? Like a caterpillar. The Dark Night of the Soul is a caterpillar. We move into a cocoon and we grow. In the rebirth stage, we blossom into a butterfly. So now we're a butterfly in rebirth. What do? What does it feel like? That's really the big question, right? So we follow our intuition. We're able to feel a new presence within us. We feel now that we are whole. We are one with everything. So it's almost like we flip. We flip our awareness from external to internal and trust. That is the key thing within this stage, learning to trust. Okay, so we've been through an awakening, we've been through dark night, we've now reemerged, realigned with our light, and we start to trust. So the things that we felt we needed before this stage, we could start to realize that we really don't need anything. We have enough grounded perspective now, enough grounded higher vibrational energy that we know that we have everything that we need. It is available to us. All we have to do is make our awareness available to it. So we kind of start to double down on our work. We start to do more meditating. We start to really sit within this feeling of this rebirth. And we trust that if we could ground and if we could anchor into this newness that we have, everything's going to be okay. We're going to find everything that we feel that we lack. It's all within us. So maybe we don't have as many what we termed as amazing external experiences as we did during the awakening process. Maybe the communication with our guides have changed. Maybe it's changed. Maybe it's not different. Maybe it's not as perceptive. Maybe it's not as out there as it was before. And this is all okay. But there's something underlying that, and we know that it's all there, and we trust it. So what do? We go inside, and we start to live more and more from this grounded consciousness, this presence that was filled into this space that we've cleared during the dark night of the soul. And there is an adjustment period. Just as a butterfly awakens from its cocoon with wings, it couldn't fly before. It had to rely on everything external. Now it has the ability to fly. It needs to start to learn how to use its wings. It needs to basically trust in its wings. And by stepping off, it knows it can fly. It can trust that. And that's what we're doing in this rebirth phase. So we're learning to trust. And this phase can last as long as it needs to. Months, could even last years. This is the phase where we're really starting to take baby steps in the new us. So when we, switch from external and we could bring our mind inside and our awareness inside and find what has been growing within us, this presence, this consciousness, we could let go of the need to search externally for things that we feel we lack. And as we do that, things are going to start coming forth. Things are going to start to manifest. And the difference now is that things are going to start to manifest in our external reality with really very little effort. It's all a function of focusing on the inside and grounding into that energy and allowing what's there to flow out to the external. And that's the beauty of this rebirth phase. I have found during that phase that the less I focused on producing and manifesting things into reality, the more things would manifest into reality. So it's another interesting, it's an interesting observation with this rebirth phase, and it's all about trusting. That's what we're here for. We're not here to allow our minds to take over and control our lives. We're here to trust that our soul will guide us. And in order to do that, we get into this new energy that we have become aware of as we've come out of Dark Night of the Soul. And we live in it as long as we can, as much as we can. And we continue to bring down more of that and anchor more of it from a conscious awareness perspective. We take an active role. We take our mind. We get our mind involved with this role. And we pull it in. And we do the work together. And we join the mind, the body, and the spirit. And we do this without any expectations. We do it just because it feels good and we know that's our path forward. And with that, we are opening ourselves up to become available to anything that we so desire. It's all right there. We just sit in that space and sit in that energy, and that's the rebirth phase. The fifth stage in the Ascension series. This will be the final video in the series. For this stage, it's the final video in the series. However, is it the final stage of Ascension? Well, let's think about that. Okay, we've been through a pre-awakening phase. Then we've awakened. We've been through Dark Night. We've been reborn. And now we're in this stage. And I like to think of this stage as really kind of the going forward, the remaining stage of Ascension. Now, we could call enlightenment the final stage, maybe the ability to transcend this physical universe as the final stage. But for the majority of us, this video is gonna concentrate on the phase that we will find ourselves in, or those of you are already in, for really the rest of your time here on Earth. Okay, so after rebirth, we've discovered who we are, and we've started to learn to work with the energy, and we've learned about shadow work. We've learned how to heal. We've learned how to work with this energy and ground it and integrate it. And we start this quest forward, okay? And this becomes really our new way of living. So when I think of this visually, I think of it almost as a spiral staircase. We're going up. It's not a direct ascension, but it's kind of a spiral. And sometimes even that spiral staircase may feel like it takes a dip backwards. And that's just part of this journey from this point forward. What we're doing in this journey in this stage is we're taking what we've learned and we are focusing our awareness on the tools that we've picked up. We're working with the energy that we are now in tune with, and we are working with our bodies that we are now conscious of, and we are putting it all together and really practicing and learning how to move energy through our body and ground our soul, our higher self, our multidimensional nature. And in this stage, we're going to be moving up this spiral staircase. And as we do, our body is going to be increasing in frequency. Now, as this happens, we're going to get energetic releases. We're going to release density because of the work we're doing with the grounding and the breath work, that kind of thing. We're going to have things come up. We're going to be triggered, but we're going to be in a position of knowing how to better handle this, okay? And as we do this, we're going to be presented more and more with more opportunity to create that space within our body and ground more of our light. And now, as we continue to go up this spiral staircase, we're going to start to move into higher realms. We're going to become aware of higher beings, multidimensional beings. We're just going to kind of ascend up gradually into this energy. So you may find that they're not going to come down, step down their frequency so much to communicate with you, but it's going to be the opposite, and you're going to actually continue to be ascending and moving up in frequency, and you're going to move up into those higher frequencies and become aware of them. So that's the whole point. Because when we take the keys, when we take over the responsibility and we take over the control, we then have the ability to reach up and move up and reach out and connect with them, instead of them taking the initiative like maybe they did during the spiritual awakening phase. And this is all representative of our growth. Okay? And this is an ongoing, never-ending process. I mean, this is where we're going to be really doing that work. This is going to become life. This is going to be an everyday event. You're going to constantly be bringing your awareness back to it. And the more you travel down, or up this staircase, the more awareness you're going to bring to the process. Okay? It's just like an expanding phase of an expanding view of the universe. And eventually, you're going to just continue to incorporate more and more of your multidimensional energy and just continue to expand your consciousness. And the more you do this, and the more you work with the tools that you have discovered, the easier you're going to find that it's going to be to get through these little bumps, on the staircase. Sometimes as we're walking up this spiral staircase, we're going to trip, we're going to fall. But as we continue to move up the path and continue, traveling this path, that's going to happen less and less. We're going to become more comfortable. We're going to become more confident. And the main thing is we're going to become more trusting with ourselves. We're going to be very centered. We're going to settle in and fall into our multidimensional self, our higher self. And we're going to just know that we are being guided. And as we continue again down this path, that is going to become more and more and more natural. Okay? And that's going to really open you up to be able to start to manifest, to really make changes in your life, to, if you want to perceive it as jumping timelines, experiencing the magic, and that kind of thing. Now, in the beginning, the magic, it felt really magical when these things would happen. Now, in this stage, in this last final kind of stage of ascension here in the physical, we're going to move up into this magic. So as this starts to happen, these things start to happen, this communication opens back up. We're communicating with our guides, maybe Pleiadians, whatever, the Arcturians, and whoever it may be that you associate with, that you resonate with. That's going to become more of a natural state. So it's just because when we start to move into these frequencies, the remembrance comes with it. Okay, so it just becomes really, really natural. And that's how we're going to just continue to go. And as we go, the staircase is almost going to become more, it's going to become more direct. And we're going to just be moving quicker and quicker and quicker. And that's representative of our body's frequency rising and being able to be a vehicle here in the physical to ground and hold more of our multi-dimensional self. So this is the stage that I feel that I'm in. I know a lot of you probably are in this stage as well. And it's not that everything just, all the struggles and all, the challenges go away. It's that we know how to handle them. We know what they truly are, what they represent, and we know how to heal. And really, that's the best way to describe this phase is probably just becoming the true healer that we are, and knowing how to work with the energy, knowing how to transmute the energy, and trusting and just expanding our consciousness from this point forward. So that's the final encompassing stage as I see it